Good evening. I want to talk to you about my wife, Leila. I met Leila 41 years ago, and she was a very special person. I remember when I first met her, when I started dating her, it was for her birthday. I gave her a card, and I wrote in it Psalms 31, Proverbs 31, I'm sorry, about the virtuous woman. And I recognized even back then that Lily was special. She was different. She was not your average person. If there was anybody on this earth that loved God, Lila was one of them. Lila loved God with her whole heart. She really loved God. She loved doing things for God. She loved going out witnessing. She loved going in the streets and being out there trying to get somebody saved. She loved that. That was her hobby. That was her favorite pastime. You know, when your person's starting to like each other, many times, especially back in those days, I wasn't saved. I mean, I was just getting saved, I should say. And so I still had a lot of worldliness in me. And so my ideal of going out was, partying. I mean, I didn't do it myself when I was growing up, but I knew people who did that. You went to dances, you went to places like that. That was not me and Lila. From the very beginning, Lila had one thing. We're going to go in the streets and we're going to help people get saved. And that's what, she did. She would travel with different ministers from the church, like Minister Sarah Lockhart, Minister Alice Eford, Minister Daisy Singleton, Evangelist Aula Pinckney. She worked very closely with Deacon James Williams, going with him, providing the music, so people would come in and get saved. Lila could be able to beat the drum and sing at the same time, and then people hear her voice and come just to hear her. Her voice had the ability to draw people, and so she would beat the drum and she would sing, because that was her heart. Her heart was reaching the lost. I met Lila in 1974. I'll never forget the events that surrounded my meeting her. In 1973, I dreamed about a young lady in a dress, and I want to say it was sort of rose-colored looking, reddish color. Anyway, I remember she had a cape attached to it. And in that dream, I was going to marry this young person, this young lady. Well, in 1974, I was sitting in the church's library studying when Lewis Hamilton rushed into the library and threw Lila's picture down on the table in front of my face. I looked at that picture for very few seconds. When I say seconds, I mean literally seconds, not even a minute. And in that brief moment, I saw in that picture the person I had dreamed about. As I sat there, looking at that picture, Lila rushed in. She snatched the picture out of my hand. She didn't say a word. She just bolted out the door. I'm shocked, flabbergasted, speechless. I mean, I had never seen anybody do anything like that. She just snatched the picture. She walked out the door. She didn't say, "Give me my picture." She didn't ask for it. She just snatched it and walked out the door. I don't recall seeing Lila for the next couple of months. That event happened like in January or February that year. I think about a month and a half, 2 months, because the apostle had at the church what was called the Ordination Assembly. And that was a big meeting for the church. Well, I'm thinking on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night, somewhere in that time frame, apostle had a prayer line and he was praying for people who murmured and grumbled, or murmured and complained. And Lila came through that line. She approached the apostle. Apostle laid his hands on her. She went down. She began to shout. As she got close to me, she went to the floor. I reached down to pick her up. While reaching down to pick her up, God spoke and said, "She's ready." I knew exactly what God was saying. I mean, I wasn't asking God for a wife. I had asked God for a wife about a year or so beforehand, but I hadn't been asking God. I definitely wasn't praying for this one. I sure wasn't praying for this woman. And I wasn't looking to be married to this woman. Not no. I mean, I still had that image from the library in my head. So God said she was ready, and like I said, I knew what God was saying, and so I asked him anyway, ready for what? And he would not answer. So I picked her off the floor. I stood and looked at her for a second, and then I pushed her on down through the line so she going through the prayer line. Well, that night after services, I saw her in the hallway. I walked up to her sort of timidly. Here again, I got this image in my head of her in the library. I mean, I don't know what this woman will say. I don't know what she's going to do or how she's going to react. I have no clue. I have no idea of what she's going to say or do. So I walked to her and I say, "Excuse me, I want to talk with you." And she said, "What about?" I said, "I'll tell you, before this meeting is over with." And so we went our separate ways. The next night, I'm coming out to church, and I see her in the hallway, and I'm sort of hesitant to go where she is. I mean, I had told her I wanted to talk to her, but now I'm not sure if I want to talk to her. So I'm sort of hesitant about going in her direction. But I go on down that way, and she says to me, "What do you want to talk to me about?" And I looked at her, and it was, I mean, just, it was like that image I saw in the library. I mean, her voice was portraying that image. And so I said, "Just give me a minute." Now, what I'm about to tell you, I don't recommend anybody doing. I had asked God that whoever he had for me to marry, let me see that person within 10 steps of a waterway. And that could have been the river or it could have been a water hydrant. But just 10 steps in the right of a waterway. So I said to her, "Just 1 minute." And I counted the steps from where we were to the water hydrant, and it was 9 steps. I'm thinking, that's within the number I had given God. 10. I walked 9. I had another thought inside of me too, and that is, I hope that when I turned around, she was gone. And so I sort of walked slowly to the water fountain, hoping that she would be gone. I dropped my water and turned around, and sure enough, she was still standing right there. Had a hand on her hip, looking in my direction. So I'm counting the steps back, and I'm wondering, what I'm going to say to her. I had told her I want to talk to her. And so I'm counting the steps, and yeah, sure enough, the steps were 9 again. And so I get up to her, and she says, again, "What do you want to talk to me about?" I'm standing there, nervous, scared, intimidated, petrified, terrified. I didn't know what she would say. I knew what I wanted to ask her, but I didn't know how she would respond to it. I remember the image of her in that library, and I knew I didn't want to see that person. Didn't want to see that person at all. So I said to her, I said, "Would." And as soon as I said "would," she interrupted me. She said, "What do you want to talk to me about? I ain't got all night. I got to go. I ain't got time for you to figure out what you want to say to me. What do you want to talk to me about?" And I'm all nervous, and I find out I uttered the word. and it's like the words just wouldn't come out my mouth. I just couldn't get them out. And finally, I uttered out this nervously. I said to her, "Would you be my special friend?" And she said, "I guess so." And she turned and she walked away. And I'm perplexed. I'm not even sure if I understood her to say what I thought she said. I'm thinking, sure, did she say, "I guess so"? Not yes, not no, but "I guess so." So I didn't get a chance to ask her that night. The next night we were at church, and I was hiding from her. I was telling you before how that when I saw her in the hallway, I didn't want to go next to her, around her. That next night, oh man, I didn't want to go around her. I was hiding from her. I was hiding. And if I could have got away from the church before she got a chance to get with me, I would have done so. She walked up to me. She said, "Why didn't you want to talk to me? I mean, why haven't you talked to me tonight at church?" Well, the reason why I didn't talk to her. I didn't want to talk to her because I was afraid, first of all, that she would say, I changed my mind. And the second thing I wondered, I thought she would say was, me? Like somebody look like you? You got to be kidding. And I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear those words. I didn't want to hear her saying stuff like that. So I was hiding from her. Leila was very straightforward. She was very blunt. She was very blunt. And she said to me one day, we was talking, it was several months later, we were at her house there on Cedar Street in Albany. And I never forget it. We were just talking, I don't know about what, just talking. When she out of the blue said, do you plan on marrying me? And I wasn't prepared for that question. I mean, I really wasn't. I wasn't expecting that question, you know. And so I said, I guess so. Those were the wrong words. She said, you guess so? Then she turned around, she did something I didn't expect. She said, get out of my house. Get out of my house and don't you ever come back again. Get. And so I walked out the door. I walked toward the door and I walked toward the road. When I got to the road, I turned around, I came back and I saw her looking at the door. And as I turned, I saw her duck back in the house and she slammed the door and locked it. I'm knocking on the door and she hollered, who is it? I said, it's Julius. I want to talk to you. What you want? I said, I don't need to talk to you. What you want? Finally, she opened the door and I said to her, I said, look, yes, I want to marry you one day. I'm not ready now. You know, I'm not ready to get married to anybody now. But one day, yes, I'd like to marry you. And when that day comes, you know, we can get married. But I'm not ready now. But see, that was over 40 years now. Because we celebrate our 40th anniversary here this past July. Leila will be 63 years old here in a couple of days. I miss her. The love of my life is gone. Heaven's gain is my loss. And not only my loss, but everybody who came in contact with Leila. Leila lost a great person, a great friend. And I'm glad to say, I can say it with assurance in my heart, with the absolute confidence in my heart, that this woman is with the Lord now. She's with her, the one that she loved more than she loved me. She loved me, but she loved him more. And she's with him now. And that says a lot to me. That says a lot to me and about her and her love for God. I didn't mind playing second fiddle to him. Amen. I didn't mind playing second fiddle to him. I thank God for Leila. Thank God for getting to know her and getting to be called, as I said to her one time, Mr. Leila Cannon.